Marcus Braxton was the epitome of success. He had a sprawling mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, and a reputation as a financial genius who turned every deal into gold. But the real story behind his wealth wasn't one he ever shared. Beneath the polished facade lay a labyrinth of dirty dealings, bribes, and betrayals that had built his empire. And at the heart of it all was Caleb, a shadowy enforcer who handled the unpleasant parts of Marcus's operations, including murder. The world only saw Marcus's charm, his philanthropy, and his immaculate suits. But Caleb knew the real Marcus. He'd been there from the start, helping Marcus silence competitors, blackmail rivals, and when necessary, remove people permanently. Caleb never questioned the orders until the night of the Arbuckle job. It was supposed to be simple. Vincent Arbuckle, a whistleblower from one of Marcus's subsidiaries, had threatened to expose a money laundering scheme. Marcus had ordered Caleb to take care of him, as usual. But when Caleb returned that night, pale and shaken, he refused to tell Marcus what had happened. The next morning, Vincent's body was found stuffed in a drainage pipe, his mouth twisted in an expression of terror. After that, Caleb began to change. He became erratic, paranoid. He would mutter to himself and jump at shadows. One evening, he stormed into Marcus's office, his eyes wild. "She's coming for us," Caleb whispered. "Who?" Marcus asked, already irritated. "The woman in the black dress. I saw her after Arbuckle. She was there, in the shadows, watching me." Marcus dismissed it as paranoia, maybe guilt. He didn't care. Caleb was falling apart, and if he couldn't handle the pressure, he'd find someone else who could. A week later, Caleb disappeared. No calls, no goodbyes, just gone. At first, Marcus barely noticed. Caleb was replaceable after all, but then strange things began happening. It started small. Papers in his office would be out of place, or his computer would freeze on screens showing images of drainage pipes. At night, he'd hear faint whispers in his mansion, as though someone were just out of sight. One evening, as Marcus returned home from a business dinner, he noticed the front door ajar. He froze. His security system was state-of-the-art. There was no way someone could have bypassed it. Cautiously, he stepped inside, his polished shoes echoing on the marble floor. The house was dark, but there was a faint smell, like damp earth and decay. "Hello," he called, his voice breaking the silence. No answer. He moved through the house, his heart pounding. As he entered his study, the floorboards creaked. He flicked on the light and froze. Written on the walls, in thick, black letters, was a single word: confess. His breath caught. Confess? Confess what? He backed away, only to hear the whisper of fabric behind him. He spun around, but the room was empty, except for a faint outline in the window's reflection, a figure in a black dress, standing just behind him. Marcus fled the room, grabbing his phone to call the police, but the line was dead. He rushed outside, climbing into his car and driving aimlessly, his only thought to escape. As he sped down the highway, the radio crackled to life, playing a distorted, warped recording of Caleb's voice. "She's coming, Marcus. She's coming for you." The car swerved as Marcus lost control, narrowly avoiding a crash. He pulled over, shaking. He knew then that whatever Caleb had seen, whatever he'd done, had left something behind, something that was now hunting him. Over the next few days, Marcus tried to resume his life, but the hauntings grew worse. At night, he'd wake to see shadows moving at the foot of his bed or hear footsteps echoing in his empty halls. His dreams were plagued by visions of Arbuckle, his lifeless eyes staring at him from the drainage pipe. Then came the night when Marcus couldn't run anymore. It was just past midnight when the power went out. Sitting in his study, Marcus felt the air grow cold. His breath fogged as he reached for the emergency flashlight. Before he could turn it on, he heard it, the soft rustle of fabric, like someone walking across the room. He froze, barely breathing. "You can't escape," a voice whispered from the darkness. It was a woman's voice, low and chilling. Marcus swung the flashlight around, the beam trembling in his hands. Standing in the corner was a figure in a black dress, her face obscured by shadows. But her eyes, they glowed faintly like embers. "Who are you?" Marcus screamed. The figure stepped closer, her movements unnaturally smooth, as if she were gliding. The smell of damp earth filled the room, stronger now, suffocating. "You know who I am," she whispered. And he did. It wasn't just Caleb's paranoia or some hallucination. This was something real, something Arbuckle had cursed him with in his final moments. Marcus had built his fortune on lies and blood, and now it was time to pay. The last thing Marcus saw was her hand reaching for him. Cold and pale as a grave,